Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be discussing kind of a situation that's been developing among the big theater chains, more specifically AMC, and how they're actually might be very close from just completely going out of business. Now, they released a statement, I believe earlier today or possibly yesterday, where they basically stated that they do not know if they have the funds to continue operations. So they've almost run out of money, and basically the estimate right now is that they've lost a total of about $2.4 billion, which is a shitload of money. And the thing is that they said before the shutdown that they actually had enough to supposedly get them through if the lockdown had to last until November. But that's obviously not the case, and they're obviously having a hard time. So I guess their estimates were off, or maybe this was some kind of a calculated thing. But it does shed a little bit of a different light on some other things that have been happening with AMC lately, namely their rivalry or their feud right now with Universal, because of Universal's decision to release some of their titles to video on demand only instead of screening them in theaters. Um, so AMC, in response to this, said that they would not show any Universal films in their theaters, and now it looks like they're about to go under. So that whole incident is looking a bit more like just a publicity stunt to me. It looked like something that maybe was meant to drum up interest, more specifically in AMC theaters, because they made the actual quote before the organization of theater owners actually made their quote. So that AMC had the first quote out there for this. And they were the first ones to kind of drum it up. So I feel like maybe this was something that the people at AMC manufactured in the hopes that they could drum up interest in the theater, or at least have it on the tip of everybody's tongue, and then they would reopen and be able to show movies and stuff. So the idea was to kind of keep them in the news and keep them relevant, and maybe I'm assuming they're a publicly traded company with stock values, maybe just keep their stocks up as well. But the thing is that in this kind of a situation, even getting your stock numbers up is not going to save your business, because there's so much crap going on right now. So the issue now relies on, so what is the hypothetical end game to this is really more or less the reason why I'm making this video, is the idea, like, let's take a hypothetical. Let's take the idea that what if AMC does go out of business? Now, like I said, it's kind of a 50-50 thing right now, because even when they reopen, there's probably not going to be a lot of people going into theaters, or they're going to have some kind of limitation rules. So they're not going to have things like full theaters. But theaters are not going to be operating at their optimal capacity when they reopen. So they're still going to take a hit financially, even when they start bringing money back in. At least initially, we're never going to know until it actually happens, but that's kind of what most people are predicting, is that it's going to be a slow trickle in kind of effect. So they're not going to get a whole lot of money out of that. So they could, even if they reopen, they could still very easily go out of business. So like I said, I'm going to take that as a hypothetical. So let's say AMC goes out of business. That's a lot of theater chains. They're the biggest theater provider in the United States. So that has now been completely eliminated. So now you have two possibilities. You have your other competition, like Showtime Cinemas and Regal, and some of the various other cinemas across the United States, the chain cinemas, can buy up those buildings and reuse those, or those buildings can be bought up by other businesses and reused. So either way, you're probably going to lose a decent amount of theaters, because a lot of those other theater companies are still in the same boat as AMC. Maybe not so much so, but they are definitely in the same boat. So they're going to be hurting when they reopen too. So they're not going to be in any position, really, for the most part, to be buying up any of these theaters that AMC are now defunct. But other businesses can. There was actually a movie theater that was the old, ironically, a company that I don't think exists anymore, Oitz Cinema, which is I can't remember exactly how the spelling is. It's a weird pronunciation too. But that it was originally a cinema, and then eventually it shut down because Oitz Cinema eventually went out of business, and it became a liquor store. There was actually a liquor store that was next door, and they made this huge, like, shopping mall, like, warehouse-sized liquor store that's extremely amazing and awesome. But I still would like to have a movie theater there because it would have been wicked close to my house. It would have been within walking distance if it survived. It hadn't closed down. But that's an example of something where a business has come in and recycled an old movie theater and turned it into something else. So I think mostly it's going to be that, which is going to be a big hit for American theaters because you're losing a huge chunk of that. And the thing is, I don't think the only thing that might help it is, if you still have mom and pop theaters in a lot of those towns and stuff like that, theaters that operate alongside the big cinemas, or at least maybe not in the same town, but in the general area. There's some of those smaller art theaters that are kind of shitty, but you usually go to them, or some of them are actually really nice. I shouldn't say that. Some of them are very nice, but some of them are kind of dumpy too. Um, they're little art theaters. They have like two or three screens, and the rooms aren't very big, but they usually show the big blockbusters and maybe like one or two. They have like the movie nights and stuff like that, where they show random things. And you also have your specialty ones like your food and your full service cinemas where it's they serve you food and drinks and stuff like that. So you have a lot of those type of places still around that are not necessarily huge chains, but places trying to monopolize on the theater thing, and I think they'll wind up getting a lot more business, and that might prove to be a bit more interesting than AMC continuing on. Now, there is a big downside to it in the fact that all the people that work at those cinemas are going to lose their jobs. And really, movie theater jobs are kind of a niche thing anyway. Really, I want to say, projectionists are really the most probably the people in the movie theater that are the most skilled and the people that actually need to be educated on how to do certain things. But obviously the kid behind the counter is probably just some high school kid who's doing that part time. So it's a give and take argument. Like there are actual skilled people that work those jobs, and they make up probably, I would say, a decent percentage of that workforce. But a large percent of the workforce is also high school kids that are just going to go off to work at a 7-Eleven or something if they lose their job there. So it's it's a hit to the job market, but it's not as heavy a hit as maybe the numbers would say. Um, but then you also have the other side of that too, where once the movie theater's out of there, what business is going to go in that spot? Is that going to be something that it might be helpful, or is it going to be like in my situation where it turned into a liquor store? But if you have a situation like that, then that business will also need new employees too. So you're going to revamp the job market a little bit. There's going to be some recycling going on there, even if it's not the same people from the movie theater coming in. You're still going to need people to take those jobs. So there is that. So I'm not the whole workforce argument for it is, while it is tragic for people losing their jobs, there's going to be a lot of recycling, and a lot of those jobs are kind of disposable to begin with in terms of the people that are doing them. By that I just mean high schoolers that are doing part-time stuff. Something they could do really anywhere, and they don't really have any kind of. It's basically they do it for spending money, probably to see free movies. But you know, that's probably the biggest actual like financial repercussion I could think of. But for the movie theaters in general, you are going to have a fairly large gap in both that and probably both the American box office, which is already taking another hit because of the pandemic. So the box office is going to go down and down and down. So that is, if AMC goes under, that would be terrible for movie theaters. Now the other argument too to make in this is that could another entity buy them out, a la an Amazon? Because I believe Amazon, I made a video on it before, but I believe it was Regal Theaters was what Amazon was thinking about buying out. Now, if that's the case, maybe AMC can make an argument to them to say, hey, we got more stuff, whatever, maybe we should be bought out. So Amazon could also maybe buy out AMC theaters instead of Regal, because again, AMC has more branches on it too. They're the largest theater chain. They edge out Regal. I mean, Regal still has a lot of theaters in the United States, but if they took AMC, they would have a good chunk of major cinemas across the United States and across other foreign territories as well, because I believe AMC also operates in Europe, Canada, and various other areas. So you have that. So the third party entities is almost even more interesting to think about, because then obviously Amazon has shown interest in it. You could throw in Netflix. Netflix has shown a bit of an interest in it. Possibly, maybe some of the production studios can't for various reasons. But it would be interesting to see if you had a different entity try and take over that theater system and try and make their own theaters, in order to, or buy out AMC to have their own theaters, in order to distribute their media. And I went over, like I said, I went over that in a previous video, but it is still interesting to think about again with this situation because AMC is probably desperate for money right now, so they are probably willing to take offers for a buyout. I wouldn't be surprised if in the following weeks we hear about AMC getting bought out by another company. But that's just kind of my opinion on how this thing could go down and kind of what's going on now and what the repercussions are. But I want to know what you think. Do you think that AMC going under is, kind of a blessing in disguise for the theater industry? Do you think it could mean that maybe the theaters will get bought out by a larger entity like an Amazon or something like that? Or do you think they'll just wind up fading out and getting transformed into other businesses and stuff like that once the theaters are actually shut down? Again, if AMC actually does go under. As usual, put your thoughts in the comments below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?